Hello, and welcome to episode 148 on the Everyday Joy podcast. I'm starting my prep on the deep dives, so if you have a particular episode from the last 50 episodes that you really resonated with, you want to hear more about, send through an email. It's in the link below. Also, if you haven't already left a written 5-star review, please do so. Had a great email question come through asking, well, where do you do this? I believe it's only available on iTunes. However, if you've got some feedback that you'd love for the team and myself to receive, again, you can send it through to the email in the inbox below. Right now, though, let's get into today's Bible verse.
Don't think you are better than you really are. Be honest in your evaluation of yourselves, measuring yourselves by the faith God has given us. That's the first part of Romans 12, verse 3 in the New Living Translation.
I've got Jackie wrapping up the week here with me. Hello, Jackie.
Happy Friday, Joy. How's it going?
Oh, it's going good. It's going good. I'm really excited about this verse because I think for you listening, if you have ever felt like a slowpoke in the lane of life, if you've kind of, can I just do a little detour? I feel like we do this all the time, Jackie. Yeah. I remember distinctly being 6 years old, sitting in a bus, and it was this after-school care program. And so all the kids had to jump onto the bus and they were taken to the after-school care facilities. And so the teacher was handing out all of these chocolates, and so she said, just come up to the front and I'll give you a chocolate. And little 6-year-old Joy doesn't know what to do when there's no set order. So I'm just like, when do I stand up? Oh, I'm going to get crushed. Okay. And I'll just sit there. And everyone was going up. And then these cheeky boys were going up for seconds and they were getting my chocolate. And so finally, when the coast was clear, when there literally was maybe one or two left, the sheer panic of missing out, I stood up and I said, can I have a chocolate, miss? And I remember her piercing blue eyes as she looked at me and she said, you are a slowpoke. And she gave me a chocolate.
Oh,
no. But you know what? This story does relate to something we're going to go into later because everyone's got their own pace.
Absolutely.
And everyone gets there in the end. And I used to stress. I'm like, how do these kids have the confidence to just get up and get chocolate? I was just not that kind of girl. So there we go. Snapshot into my life.
Love it.
So, Jackie, wrapping up the week. So, what are your first impressions and what does this verse tell you about who God is?
For me, the thing that stands out immediately is that we're not measuring ourselves against everybody else. You know, we're not measuring, it doesn't say measure yourselves by your own faith. It says measure yourselves by the faith God has given us. So there's no judgment there. There's actually no comparison. God sees us all and he loves us all.
Love it. And what does this verse tell you about who God is or what matters to him?
I think it's that God's not looking at where we should be. So he's not looking at, 99.9% of people are married by the age of and have this many kids and have this career trajectory or, have this house or this way of living. He's not looking at us like that. He's not making those comparisons. He's looking at where we are with him.
Yeah. And that is the key thing we really want to get through with today's episode, because I, to this day, still remember that moment on the bus because I wasn't as fast as all the other kids. And I used to beat myself. I don't know why, but that whole thing made me feel like I'm just not wired like the other kids. I'm not racing to be first all the time. And maybe that's why I'm behind. Maybe that's why I don't get these opportunities. And I love that this verse is so freeing because it tells us to measure yourself by the faith that God has given you, not measuring yourself according to what other people around you are achieving and what they are doing, which simplifies things.
Yeah. and I guess my story Joy is a little bit almost from I have a very opposite mindset. So I was, right from the get-go when I left school, I decided I was going to study part-time and work full-time because I wanted to have the career, I wanted to get the knowledge, I wanted to, start earning money straight away. I was really ambitious. I knew what I wanted and, I had this goal of, by the time I'm 30, I'm going to be doing this, and I worked towards it and I was on that trajectory. And then I met my ex-husband overseas. babies. We got engaged. We did everything. And then I found out I was pregnant with my first child. So that whole sort of thing just blew up in my face. And I discovered that what I really wanted to do and what felt really important to me was to look after my children in that phase of my life. So I actually spent 12 years out of the traditional workforce. And I say traditional workforce because for every mum out there, we all know, whether you're working or not, it's work. Yeah. And there's a lot of stuff that goes with it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But I decided for me that was what I wanted to do. Then when I went back to the workforce, I was like flabbergasted. I was so fearful and so, oh my gosh, I haven't done this for years and years and years.
How many years was it?
12.
12. Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because there was circumstances in there that meant I had to be home with, one of the kids for a period of time because of health issues.
Yeah.
So 12 years, long time. And went back into the workforce, into a job that I'd never done before, had to undertake training to get to. But in the back of my head, and I think it's because I am this, Enneagram 3, the perception really matters to me. I like to be at the forefront. I'm ambitious. I want to grow. I love, all that stuff that we've talked about before. And I was just so conscious of the fact that I wasn't where I thought I would be, and I wasn't where all my peers or co-workers or everybody around me was in terms of career trajectory. And I felt that so acutely until then, I'm having conversations with God about it, going, well, what is this? I don't like feeling like this. And he said, no, you're doing what I need you to do. You're exactly where you're meant to be. I knew this was the path. I knew this was going to happen. And you're right in, under my wings, in my hand, doing what you're meant to be doing.
And I think, Jackie, your story is something that a lot of people can relate to. This idea that you are in a position where everyone seems to be ahead of you. Did you in any way try to force yourself to work harder, longer, just do more because you wanted to be on track with everyone else?
So there's two parts to this answer, right? And one is the oh gosh, I'm so mature and so emotionally evolved part of it, which is I looked towards God. I realized that any competition I felt, I was the only one feeling that competition. Nobody else was looking down on me. Nobody else was, holding me to account for that or anything like that. And that's the really lovely version. The other side to it was, no, I tried. I worked so hard. And I pushed for opportunities to go in a direction that I wanted to go in. And I, changed careers, changed the area that I worked in. And I did all of that kind of thing. I'm not so intent on that now because I'm more looking. So I guess those two sides have merged a little bit.
Yeah.
And I realised that it's nobody else cares. I'm the only one who cares. So long as I can feed my family and do what needs to be done around the house and pay for a roof over our heads, I think we're all good. But yeah, I think those two things have merged now, and it's more about having that conversation with God, having that ability to kind of step back and go, what do you want me to do? What I'm trying to say is turning it into prayer and actually saying, Lord, what do you want for me? Where do you want me to be right now? What's the direction that you're giving me? And then if I'm fighting against that, can you please let me know and, offer me those, comfort verses or, that kind of thing.
And I think there's two really great halves to this. For you listening, maybe you feel like the slowpoke. You feel like the one who's not where everyone else is. And the encouragement, I guess, for you today is to not measure yourself according to where everyone else is and what they're doing. So that's part one. And I think part two is if you found yourself in a position where you're trying to make up for lost time, where you're trying to get back the years, or you're trying to get back the opportunities you missed out, or you're trying to somehow fast track where you're at out of a sense of urgency, or that you're going to be left behind, I think the encouragement and great insight you gave, Jackie, Jackie, is to invite God into it, to pray, but to also have a sense of peace that you are exactly where you're meant to be, and that where you're at and the pace that you're at is okay. Like, you don't have to make up for lost time.
Yeah, absolutely. And that drive and that ambition, that's a great thing. Like, I know I struggled with that as well, knowing that was a God-given thing. And he's been great in letting me know that is actually a God-given thing, and you can be both. You can have your own measure of faith against what I want you to be, and that's all you need to look at.
So to wrap up today's conversation, Jackie, was there anything else you wanted to throw in or add in for our listeners?
I think it's looking to God, looking to the Bible for those measurements and how he's looking at you. So Micah 6:8 is a great verse for that as well. He has told you, so God's told us what is good and what the Lord requires from you: to do justice, embrace faithful love, and walk humbly with your God. And I think that's a great sort of, come back to basics, come back, look at what God's telling you, look at how you're operating in the world, and hand it all over to God and keep going. He's given you, he's given you that measure of faith. Step into it.
As we come to the end of today's episode, I want to read out today's Bible verse again. Romans 12, verse 3, the first part of it. Don't think you are better than you really are. Be honest in your evaluation of yourselves, measuring yourselves by the faith God has given us. And today we are talking about time. And in terms of measurement, how are you measuring time? Are you feeling like you're left behind, that you're the slowpoke, that somehow you are not where you are supposed to be, like Jackie when she re-entered the workforce? Or maybe for you, you feel like you need to speed up time. You've got to cram a whole year's worth of experiences into one family vacation. Or maybe you feel like you've absolutely got to get all of this stuff done before you decide to have kids or something like that. I'm not sure what it is for you. I think when we look at this verse, we need to focus on the last few words, which says, by the faith God has given us. We measure things very differently when we introduce God into the equation, because we know that when it comes to time and God's timing is perfect. And if you'd like to read more about this, I'd encourage you to actually read some material on Jesus's public ministry, because Jesus was an excellent example of utilizing time wisely. He only had a 3-year public ministry, but in those 3 years, he was able to rest and he was able to work really hard. He traveled and he did what he was called to do. But he also looked after his family and looked after those who needed him. Jesus was the ultimate example in not feeling pressured by time or measuring success according to the time left or what he was expected to achieve by the age of 33, Jesus was so secure in who God called him to be, and he was incredibly trusting of God's timing. Well, that wraps up today's conversation on the Everyday Joy podcast. Hey, I look forward to catching up again next week. Jen is going to be joining me, and I'm super excited. We've got some incredible conversations planned, and I look forward to catching up with you then.